Starting Phase 5 of the MCU and introducing a new villain using an Ant-Man movie was something I was really excited for. The Ant-Man movies always do a good job of being entertaining on their own. I always look forward to them because the comedy is really good in a different way than the other MCU movies. But the way that this movie's set up, I knew it had more work to do and it had more on its shoulders. It had to get us ready for the rest of the MCU Phase 5. And other than the Loki show, this is the first time we're seeing Jonathan Majors as Kang the Conqueror. But before getting to the big picture, on its own, it is a very entertaining movie. Paul Rudd as Ant-Man and Evangeline Lilly as the Wasp return and find themselves exploring the quantum realm, interacting with strange new creatures and embarking on an adventure that pushes them beyond the limits of what they thought was possible. That premise made for some really gorgeous landscape CGI shots of the quantum realm. From afar, it looks grandiose in scale, cityscapes, landscapes. It looks amazing, but then when characters are on screen, it looks really, really bad. You can see the green screen halo around characters when they're talking. It makes the world feel super empty, and the quantum realm's the big selling point of this movie, but it doesn't feel like you actually got to see much of it. And I know there's no other way to show the quantum realm, it has to be CG, but there's something about these new Marvel movies that takes me out of the world. I wish it was a little bit more like Guardians of the Galaxy, where things are a little bit more practical and you can feel the world around them. And am I the only one that feels like Marvel's CGI has gotten worse over time? I don't know if Disney's trying to save a buck, because they did lose money on a few movies recently, like Lightyear and Strange World, but it definitely feels that way. I think if you go back and watch old Marvel movies, they look a little bit better. And the whole storyline surrounding the quantum realm and how they got there and what happened up to this point, I found it all to be extremely generic and boring and a little bit disappointing, because there's so much you could do with that. It's the same storyline we've seen 1,000 times, and most of the times it's from Marvel movies, and the whole way that they get to the quantum realm just irks me as well. Ant-Man's daughter, played by Katherine Newton, plays sort of an idealistic teen, and her character is the reason they get to the quantum realm in the first place, and a bunch of bad things happen that makes the storyline continue. And it's not her fault, because I think it's just the way the character's written. She gave a great performance. It's just that they kept positioning her character to be annoying to us because she causes a lot of conflicts, and they really didn't give you a reason to care about her other than it being Ant-Man's daughter and he seems to really care about her. And then to make matters worse, it seems like they're setting her up to be sort of a replacement for him one day. And not to mention that the way her character's written, it's one of those typical one-dimensional female characters that Marvel loves to write, where they have no flaws, they don't regret anything, they're just strong for the sake of being strong, and they almost don't feel human or flawed in any way. The only real flaw is that she needs time to master her abilities, but by the end of the movie, she's growing super big just like her dad and doing all the stuff he can do anyway. Now, what really saved the movie and made it a really enjoyable film for me was Jonathan Majors as Kang the Conqueror. He had a foreboding presence on screen, he was physically imposing, and he gave an emotional performance that had so much more depth to it than anything else in the movie. He stood out in the best way possible. And it's super exciting because you know this is the next big villain after Thanos, and he has some of the great qualities that Thanos had, where you don't completely agree with him, but you kind of get what he's trying to do. I know you have to be a complete sociopath to completely understand them, but it's not like he has no reason for being evil or bad. But because he was in the movie and he's being set up to be the next villain, I couldn't help but feel like this Ant-Man movie did the worst job out of the three in being its own movie. It's not that it wasn't entertaining. I was honestly entertained through the entire thing, just like any other Marvel movie. But at the end of the day, walking out of the theater, it felt like this movie didn't need to happen. It was just there to get us from point A to B. And if you look at it from Marvel's perspective, what better place to do all this setup than the quantum realm, where everything that happens doesn't really matter. There's no consequences because you put a super powerful being in a tiny world where time and space doesn't really exist or whatever, and nothing's consequential. So in a way, I really think the quantum realm, which could have been the movie's biggest asset, was its biggest liability, because the quantum realm was a constant reminder to me that not only was everything non-consequential, but everything's going to work out enough to get us to that next stage. And not only is that a huge pet peeve of mine to have movies that only exist to get us to more movies, but I always thought that the Ant-Man franchise did a really great job of standing on their own. They always were extra funny, had a different type of comedy, but Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania really did stoop to that level where it's really only there to get you to the next phase, even though it's entertaining. But hey, I just mentioned the the comedy, one really good thing about this movie is that it is really funny. It also has a little bit of an edge to the humor, and I was kind of surprised at some of the humor because it seemed a little bit more adult than in any other Marvel movies I can really think of. I heard that one of the writers for this movie was someone from Rick and Morty, and you can kind of tell it has that type of humor at times, and I thought it helped the movie out a lot. There were a lot of people laughing in my theater, so it seemed like people were having a really good time with this movie, and you probably will. If you're a Marvel fan, of course go check it out. It's a great time. I'm just being a little bit critical because at the end of the day, it doesn't do anything different, it doesn't do anything better, but that's not to say that it's not a great time. And hey, there's a great scene with Bill Murray. It's my favorite scene in the whole movie where people are just sitting and talking for a little bit, and it builds a little bit of tension. I really enjoyed that. They need to do that more. There's also 2 post-credit scenes, so definitely stick around for those, and they're both really cool. Overall, guys, even though this movie has a ton of issues, it wastes a ton of acting talent, it wastes our time a little bit because it really doesn't need to exist, it still did a great job setting up Kang the Conqueror, and I think it's going to give Marvel the direction it needs. I think Marvel fans have felt like Marvel's been a little bit lost for a while now. I think a lot of people felt like Phase 4 wasn't very good, they need some type of direction. It really feels like they're catching their footing here, and it's heading in a better direction from here on out. Anyway, guys, thank you as always for watching. I do want to implement some type of rating system for this channel going forward. If you have any original ideas, let me know. I'm brainstorming just A through F or 1 through 10, but if there's something original that I haven't thought of or that's not typical, let me know in the comments because I do want to implement a rating system to sum up my thoughts from here on out. Anyway, thanks for watching. See ya.